I mean, master debaters can be unmuted.
I have faith.
All right, let me now. Okay, welcome in everybody. This is the Unhinged Pod or Unhinged Live. I don't know if it's considered a podcast. You can call it whatever you want. I'm doing the intro right now for Mr. Unhinged Tony because he doesn't want to do the intro himself. No, I'm doing it because I'm moderating the debate tonight, which will be between Drunken Gamer over here and Tootie. We have Drunken Gamer over here is debating that the war on drugs was justified, whilst Tootie is debating that it was not justified. So how this is going to work is they'll each get 3-minute opening statement. They'll be able to speak for as long as they want within that 3-minute frame. Then the other one will get a 3-minute opening statement. And then after that, we'll have rounds of rebuttals, which I honestly am probably just going to allow you guys to go for like I think these a specific time will be 3-minute rebuttals. But really, if you guys go a little over that, I'll give you a little bit of due diligence, I'll say, or a little bit of grace period, I should say. But nonetheless, I'm not going to try to jump in too much. I might jump in a little bit in the beginning if we're kind of just, letting the debate play out. But nonetheless, I think you guys can handle it. I think you guys are mature. So welcome in, both of you. And who would like to go first?
I don't mind if you want to go drunken.
You want me to go first, Tootie?
Yeah, why not?
All right.
Alrighty. Let me know when you're ready.
I am ready. 3, 2, 1 now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed panel of judges and fellow debater, picture a society overrun by unchecked fentanyl floods, empowered cartels, shattered families. That's the disaster we avert daily through the war on drugs. Launched by President Nixon in 1971 as an all-out offensive against the public enemy number one, as he put it, this policy remains as an essential safeguard disrupting crime empires, curbing epidemics for over 50 years. Tonight, I'll demonstrate its success and why banning it would actually invite catastrophe rather than righting its wrongs. Critics label it as a failure, but the data tells a different story. Aggressive enforcement slash past month illicit drug use by over 60% from the 1970s 14.1 peak percent to 5.8% by 1982. Fueled by Reagan era measures and the Just Say No campaigns coined by Nancy Reagan, cocaine use halved by post 2006 as an interdiction hiked prices and cut purity. Recently, intensified border ops and cartel crackdowns drove overdose deaths down nearly 30% by the late 2025, saving thousands of Americans. Globally, strict models shine. Singapore's zero tolerance policy yields 2.3 lifetime use, while Sweden's approach keeps rates 1/3 of the EU's average. With declining deaths and treatment needs, opponents highlight incarceration, disparities in costs, but these are overstated. Since the 1980s, disparities reflect socioeconomic factors, not bias, and trillions invested pale against addiction costs, which annually are around 600 billion yearly. Failed alternatives like Oregon's decriminalization saw overdoses surge 115% before reversal. The war on drugs contains harm, protects the vulnerable, and reclaims futures. Surrendering will just normalize prisons and empower evil. With evidence on my side, I seek to debunk the myths today.
That's it? Okay. All right, you had about 30 seconds left. Perfect. Tootie, go whenever you're ready.
Alrighty. So, pretty much in my debate, I'll be stating that the war on drugs did not stop people from wanting drugs, leading to, even if people were being arrested for drugs and crackdowns on drugs were being implemented, doesn't mean that drugs were still not wanted. Due to that, the higher prices were enacted with drugs. It was also the higher prices were enacted because of the crackdown. It wasn't used like drugs such as cocaine, like you said, were not used to the extent that they usually were prior to that. The purity rate of them rose throughout the 1980s, along with the prices fell of cocaine, not rose. My mistake there. But through the 1980s and 90s, the violent crime rate with it was there because I'm not too good with this opening statement.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. Now, Drunken, you will have 3 minutes for rebuttals again. I'm not even going to step in after this. I mean, I'll step in if someone like goes on for way too long, way past 3 minutes or whatever. But other than that, I'm gonna let this play out. I think you guys are mature adults that can handle it. Drunken, go whenever you're ready.
So at face value, immediately say that the war on drugs statement never was to dissuade people from wanting drugs. It was to dissuade people from obtaining drugs. There's a difference there. So to try and say that it was unsuccessful because people still wanted drugs is ludicrous. Now, that being said, you also have the issue that you brought up about cocaine prices and the cocaine purity. We actually saw that interdiction with U.S. DEA officials interdicting with the cartels, saw them a marginal cut in cocaine production, at least pure cocaine. You also had an issue. You also have illicit drug use amongst Americans falling sharply from 14.1% in 1979, which was the peak of the 70s, to a 5.8% in 92. That's roughly a 60% reduction right there. Now, the decline aligned with era Reagan intersection with the war on drugs, including mandatory minimum sentences, the Just Say No campaign that I stated about Nancy Reagan, and increased funding for enforcement and education. You know, cocaine. You're right, did surge in the 80s, but did decline dramatically afterwards. Past year cocaine use dropped by nearly half from the 2006 levels onward. So, with broader post 1980s reductions in enforcement, we see that the anti-drug campaigns of the early 2000s actually did have a marginal and nominal effect amongst the youth, which at the time, which in all reality is the demographic that cartels and other drug peddlers are going to target. And then on your last point, when it comes to incarcerations, while a lot of petty drug crime is by itself victimless, you also have an issue with drug dealers and people who are addicted to drugs committing other crimes associated with them. So that includes robbery, armed assault, armed robbery, the list goes on. And these communities were found to be safer by a factor of a third simply because these people were getting taken off the streets and a near zero tolerance policy was instituted.
All right. Well, like you said with the cocaine rates did drop, yes, but the reason that they dropped wasn't because people were not using drugs anymore. The reason that they dropped was because people were using crack. Crack exploded during the 90s and early 2000s. It was because it was cheaper than cocaine. Cocaine had a fall off. But along with what you said with the youth, the reason that youth wasn't using drugs is because the main drug that youth would use was marijuana at the time. And realistically now, I'd say 50 to 60% of youth still do use marijuana. As someone who just graduated high school, 90% of youth still is using marijuana, even though it is legal now. Back then, it was not, which led to less incarceration rates for pot, marijuana, whatever you want to call it. But what was the last thing you said?
Violent crime.
Oh, the violent crime rates. Yeah, so what I want to say there is I do not believe that those people should have just been thrown in prison, because that's not going to help them get once they get back on the streets, they're just going to start using again. So even if they are doing the violent crimes, etc., because of the drugs, if they once they get released from prison, they're just going to end up doing the violent crimes again and doing drugs again, because there's no treatment centers for them or anything like that to actually receive help. But that
Well,
is all for
my question would be to you, what is your evidence based on that?
what is my evidence based on that? Good question. I do not have evidence, but all right, yeah, you got me there.
So, for what we do know from data is that we have a pretty significant non-reoffending rate when it comes to these drug dealers that are going in, because as much as people like to try and say that the American legal system is geared towards just creating a new wave of slavery and just indentured servitude and yada yada yada, not really wanting to rehabilitate people, they fail to realize that most petty drug dealers are given softcore prisons that have a host of programs that are intended to help them reacclimate to society. You know, many of them go in without a college education, let alone a high school education, and a lot of them, almost 2/3 of them, come out with a minimum of a GED. So that right there is showing that there is some um, significant extras or programs being thrown at these guys and girls to try and get them in a better state of mind, better socioeconomic path. Because at the end of the day, drug use and drug um, crime is mostly based off of socioeconomic issues, just like you would see with uh, most petty crimes such as thievery. So, you know, you have that issue right there. But then you also mentioned about uh, the marijuana use. While yes, marijuana is considered pretty much a non-factor safe drug to use in today's society, we also have several FDA studies coming out and other European studies coming out that prolonged use of marijuana in our youth, while usually considered safe, is actually altering their DNA. So the long-term ramifications of that, we have no idea. It's like the microplastics we're finding throughout our body. We don't know the long-term ramifications, and we probably won't know for another couple decades.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's merely doing it is more than enough reason to cause harm, to cause concern.
I do agree with you there. I do think that it is causing harm. I don't think it's doing good at all. I don't think marijuana should be legal for children at all. But the incarceration rate, when you were talking about that, were you speaking about drug dealers or um, people that use drugs and commit violent crimes on drugs?
Both.
All right, both. All right. So, speaking in the sense of somebody, if they have an addiction or something and they're homeless or something, are on the streets, do you think that they're going to just stop using drugs once they're back on the street?
Well, in the context of your question, no.
So then, how will just sending them to prison or jail once they're found committing a violent crime off of drugs help them stop abusing the drugs? Is what I'm trying
Because
to
it
say.
depends on the crime that they're being accused of. Because usually most petty crime, when it comes to just normal possession, you're given a softball prison that's filled to the T with social programs that help these guys and girls extend further into life rather than being beholden to the streets. And not for nothing, if someone is committing an assault, they are committing a much more violent crime, but that doesn't preclude them from applying for uh, social programs. Now, you obviously You have some states that are better than that. That's a discussion for another day, for another time. And I'll say right off the bat, the American legal system needs to, for the nonviolent crimes and for the crimes of people that can be rehabilitated and put back into society who don't have life terms. Yeah, sure, we should have social programs ready for them so that way they can be functioning members of society. However, when we're talking about uh, people that are, like you said, homeless or getting picked up for possession, they're not getting picked up and thrown into supermax security prisons, and they're not getting picked up and being whisked away and never to be seen again. These are men and women who are down on their luck, who get a few months to a year for depending on the amount of possession that they have in their possession, and they can, if they choose to, take advantage of the social programs that are available to them if they are there. Now, if they choose not to, that's up to them. You can lead a horse to water, you can't force it to drink.
All right. So you are right there. We'll admit that. However, what I will say is, huh, I, I yeah, you, you do make a great point there. You can't. All right. I don't have anything to say now.
I will say this though, like for example, in specific, like Oregon's Measure 110, which was its decriminalization effort in 2021. They saw drug possession arrests fall 67%, but they saw overdose deaths rise significantly, um, and which eventually led to the Colorado state government recriminalizing everything that they just decriminalized less than a year later.
Yeah, I don't think it's a smart idea at all to decriminalize all drugs. In that sense, that is the most idiotic thing any government could do. Speaking as, I think is it Seattle, Washington that decriminalized all drugs? Correct me if
Yeah, and they're
I'm
handing out literal kits to help you get you high, but they're clean, so they're gonna make sure people don't die. So yeah, that's really intelligent.
I don't see the point in doing that. I mean, I would prefer for them, if they do want to help those people, not to just be giving out the drugs. Because, like you said earlier, yeah, that will increase the crime rate. Ugh. But do you know if Seattle's crime rate has raised since then?
I do not know, but let me take a look right now,
Already.
if you don't mind.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
In Portland, they hand out new injection kits and clean injection sites. They also decriminalize class 1 drugs. So you're telling me in Portland, if I could just go to Portland, I could get fentanyl injected?
Yes, that's the whole purpose of safe injection sites.
I do think that that is a bunch of bullshit. I think that people should not be having safe injections. I think they should be rather receiving help. Like Wacky said earlier, it makes people reluctant to seek help, especially when they are advocating for, like you just said, Laji, promoting drug use. It's literally promoting drug use, the injection sites.
So to give you an answer to your question, according to Como News, which seems to be a local tabloid out of Seattle, they are claiming that violent crime rates have declined in Washington State. However, but drug and gun offenses have risen it's risen by 31%.
All right. So what it's pretty much saying is that crime rates have pretty much increased with drug use. That's what I'm taking from that.
So, while I agree that there are probably better ways for our country to handle it, at least on the internal side, I personally feel that the estimated $1 trillion that America has spent to combat drug use in America since the 80s has been a well returned investment, for the simple fact that it's destabilized several cartels. We've saved probably tens of thousands of lives of people that we have mirrored, because we're trying to mirror what Singapore has done, what Japan's done. They are incredibly strict on not guns, I'm sorry, on drugs, but they have a social stigma against using drugs and have a more robust society to combat the effects of what drugs would normally give these people. Because people normally seek out drugs because they're either in a depressive state and they're trying to feel better, which Japan does pretty well with its mental health apparatus, minus the working people to death thing. And then Singapore also does a pretty good with its social programs to keep people off drugs long term, with, like I said, less than a 3% overall rate nationwide with them. So do I think America can improve in some aspects? Absolutely. But to say that the war on drugs was a failure, I can't see that.
All right. Well, yeah, like Wacky just said, Japan's suicide rate is pretty high. But I, I will say the changed a lot, and on if it has risen or lowered. I think you just said that it is lowered. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm sorry, but I was reading what they were saying. What was your question?
Did you say that the overdose rates have lowered or
They've
higher?
lowered. Well, in Seattle,
Alrighty.
or
No,
in general, yes, they've dropped dramatically.
Alrighty. Is there a year in particular, or since what year?
Let me go back to my little note here. Drug use. I have lost it in my sea of notes. I apologize. 1 second.
You're all good.
Yeah. So, as of right, so the drug overdose rate has been decreasing steadily since 1979.
Alrighty. Well, what I'm looking at says that the U.S. overdose death rate has skyrocketed since 2010
That's
due
because
to
of fentanyl.
fentanyl.
Yep.
Yes.
So fentanyl
And
I'm sorry. Let you finish. I
no,
apologize.
you're okay. Whole reason is because we cracked down a hell of a lot on heroin and, like you said earlier, cocaine. So that's the whole reason that fentanyl spiked, was because we cracked down on heroin and cocaine, crack, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all I had to say.
Oh, my rebuttal to that would be that, simply put, the cartels are trying every which way to get people hooked on cocaine, because most people, cocaine and pills, those are the two big money makers for the cartels, and
Mhm.
so they know fentanyl is wildly addictive, right? And they can get it stupidly cheap from China rather than when they have to make it themselves. Because believe it or not, fentanyl is actually pretty difficult to synthesize in mass quantities um, cheaply, right? They have plenty of coconut leaves down there. They don't have a lot of the what they need to make for fent. That being said, um, it unfortunately this is just going to be a byproduct of human ingenuity. That humans are always going to want to seek out greed, right? And the cartels are the epitome of greed-seeking humans. So to say that the war on drugs is failing or wrong or that it's misguided simply because cartels are finding new ways to kill people, uh, that is like saying someone inventing a new gun automatically makes him Satan, right?
Yeah.
Because a gun can be used in multitude of ways. It's a tool at the end of the day, right? And unfortunately, for a lot of people, drugs uh, are not anything but a tool as a coping mechanism. Now, it's our job as citizens, people, individuals, to help steer these people away from needing those things. But it's also the government's job to enforce the laws of the land. And as you clearly stated, decriminalization would lead to far more uh, overwhelming consequences than what we're currently going through right now.
Well, with that, I do not have a rebuttal to anything you really said, so I'm going to concede there on this debate.
Oh, you're done?
Yeah.
No, Judy, no. I guess moderator, we should probably open up questions to the floor.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest.
I got
If
my ass
anyone
handed.
sent me any questions, I haven't seen it because I've been here messing with the new images we get to add to the rolls. But I was still listening. I just haven't checked if anyone asked me something. Um. Okay, let me see. Yeah. Okay, I only have a question from Tony. So this is Tony's question. I'm going to read it verbatim, and I'm assuming this is for both of you. So one of you wants to take it
I'll
first.
let
That's
Judy
fine.
take it.
Should we keep on pursuing funding for social welfare when the war on drugs spent $70 billion a year on corrections and incarcerations without helping with true rehabilitation?
I'll let Judy take this first.
I'm going to ask it one more time because I read it pretty bad because there was a parentheses in between. My
Thank
bad.
you.
I'm going to ask one more time. Should we keep on pursuing funding for social welfare when the war on drugs spent $70 billion a year on corrections and incarceration, but it didn't help with true rehabilitation?
All right. Well, what I'm going to say there is it's a difficult question. No, yes, but not in the way that we are currently funding the social welfare programs. Because like he said, it did. Can you repeat the last sentence one more time?
Yeah. Okay, one second. I'll just go read it again. So I'll just. So the first part is: should we keep on pursuing funding for social welfare? And then he points out that the war on drugs spent $70 billion a year on corrections and incarcerations, but it didn't help with true rehabilitation.
All right, then.
So do you think that $70 billion a year has been worth it?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Because if it's not helping with true rehabilitation, I do not think that the current welfare program should be used in that sense. I think it should be reformed instead of completely taken away. I think we just need to change some aspects about it.
Okay. Drunken, now your turn.
I'm going to be in agreement with Tootie. While I disagree with them not having any marginal success with rehabilitation, the attempt needed to be made, and it has been made in great quantity of success with a lot of demographics and a lot of people, especially like really petty crime holders, people that are homeless. So I am going to agree with him though that the system does need to be overhauled, and it does need to be more streamlined. And there is obviously double dipping when it comes to these social welfare people are in charge of it. So that needs to be addressed, and I think we would probably see a lot of money get. But to say that we should remove them entirely, so that way that these people who are trying to pay their debt to society can actually re-enter society and not recommit is ludicrous.
I agree with you.
Yeah. I actually have one question for both of you. I have a feeling this is one time where you guys are going to disagree. So, Tootie, I definitely think I know your stance on this, and I'm pretty sure I know your stance as well, Drunken. I don't care which one of you wants to take it first. Doesn't matter. Do you believe that the war on drugs was racist, either implicitly or explicitly?
I'll take it this one
Yeah,
first.
you can go first.
So when it started under Nixon, it was not racist. However, we do have documentation that the CIA did actually not CIA, the FBI actually did push cocaine into black neighborhoods. This is widely known. This is widely known. We do have a decriminalized sorry, not decriminalized, wow, I'm blanking on the term for it. We do have unclassified documents from that era showcasing that they did in fact push cocaine to these neighborhoods, and it did adversely affect the black community. So I will say when it started, it was not biased, but I will admit that under Reagan, he allowed his FBI to use their power a little too fervently, and that should never have happened.
Okay. What do you have to say on this, Tootie?
Well, he said exactly what I was fucking thinking, so I can't really just repeat what he said. I don't think it
Okay.
was racist under Nixon, no, but under Reagan, it definitely was. Like he said, the FBI did push cracking cocaine into black neighborhoods.
Yeah. So, all right, I think you're both in agreement then, because I didn't think that. I mean, I could be wrong, but Tootie, I don't think you're saying that it was like inherently racist. Because actually, no, you're not saying that because you just said that it wasn't under Nixon. It just you think it kind of morphed into that under Reagan CIA.
Correct.
Okay. All right, that's the only question I have, to be honest. If anyone else has any question, honestly, you guys can come up and just talk. I'm not. As long as you don't argue with them, and as long as you mute yourself after you ask the question, you can talk. So if anyone wants to ask a question, ask one, but then immediately mute. Do not argue with them.
Hi.
In my opinion, I think addiction is a disease that needs to be treated. I don't think it's something that needs to be incarcerated for. I think we need more systems to help people that do have addiction instead of, like you said, just incarcerating them. In my personal opinion, from what I've seen in my life, I've had people that have been addicted to drugs. Addiction is definitely a disease. It's not something that you can just stop. Like, if you're addicted to something, you can't just stop doing it. It's impossible, especially when your body relies on it. So I do think that we do need, like, I don't even know, not like hospitals, but like something like better treatment centers for them to get treatment.
I have a statement to make, kind of a question, but more of a statement.
Wait. No. Only you only can ask questions. The statements are designed just for the.
I'll pause myself, remute, and reform my statement into a question.
Okay.
To answer your question, Tony, addiction is as coming from a little bit of background on me, my mother is a pillhead. She's a clinic hopper. And she tried to be a Mac Daddy of a trailer park. So I will tell you right now, addiction is 100% a disease. Unfortunately, it's a disease that, like many other mental disorders, which addiction is sort of a hybrid disease of between a mental disorder and a physical disorder. The a addiction needs to be treated one way or another, and whether or not we're soft on them is what's actually going to be able to get them the help that they need. We definitely need to figure out a way to get these people the treatment that they need, and whether that is detoxing them forcefully and then getting them on a social program that's going to keep them off of it, raise them out of the socioeconomic status that caused them to go into that situation in the first place, is one thing. But to not incarcerate them so that they are not a and not a danger or a problem to the people around them or the family members, and to cause undue stress and other psychological pressures for that family, provided that the person is even slightly violent while under the influence. And that goes for anyone that's whether they be drug, alcohol, or whatever. They should be incarcerated in some form of mental institution or asylum, whether that is designed specifically for drug rehab, that remains to be seen. But like I said, when Tootie and I agreed that the system does need to be overhauled and refocused, that would be one of my top priorities. That I would be for incarceration, but targeted incarceration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tootie, do you have anything to say to that or no?
No.
Okay. I actually do have one more question for you guys, because this is something that definitely was not covered, and I don't know where either of you would stand on it. So my question is, what legitimate role, if any, should the federal government have in drug policy versus the states? So do you think that basically, do you think that drug regulation should more so be a state's issue, a federal issue, or should it be kind of intertwined? Either of you can take it first, and either of you, or one of you can go next.
I think it should be intertwined, with heavily leaning off of the federal government. I think states, I think the states getting a say on what they should allow in their state is fine. For example, if a state votes on, and this is not saying that the state legislator just unanimously voted on something. No. It should be something that the entire population of the state is voting on it, and they get a say, not what their elected representatives say. While that is leaning a little heavily into democracy, rather than republicanism, I will say that we have had success in various other states, and including across the nation, where we've had blanket votes to get people to vote on a certain issue, and getting them passed properly. For example, here in my hometown, they put to vote a near $2 billion tax increase to the vote to put turf around our local high school. Get the hell out of here with that shit. It was killed instantly, right? But if it was left up to the school board and the mayor, well, that shit would have passed right away, right? Now, that being said, the federal government being heavily involved partnered with a reformed FDA that actually follows science rather than the whims of the pharmaceutical giants, that's a big thing that needs to be installed. Because if a state somehow votes for cocaine being legalized in their state, they're crazy. That should not be allowed.
All right, Tootie.
So I was gonna say intertwined, but the more I think about it, I do agree with intertwined, but I think it should be more towards the federal level because of like we were just saying in Portland, and I think I don't remember what the other place was, but say they have safe injection sites, it's just going to higher the crime rate, etc. I don't think the federal government should allow them to be allowed to create safe injection sites or anything like that. Like you
Yeah,
said,
they call them drug safe havens. It's so stupid.
What if the federal government was to do exactly what Portland and Seattle are doing by allowing drug use with clean injection sites? Would that change your opinion on it being federal heavy?
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
good point.
I definitely would, because yeah, you do make a good
So,
point.
so would you say that would change your opinion on it being less mutual between state and government, or more mutual between state and government and less one-sided heavy?
Yeah, I guess it would. I mean, it does depend on what side is in power. That makes the rules technically.
Right.
So
So whoever
basically,
implements
you
the
just
bad.
have you're just saying your real issue isn't necessarily where the relationship is. You just think that the relationship should come to one conclusion in regard to this issue, and that's no drug safe havens. Like, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, there's
Well-
another question for you guys. Tacitus sent this to me. Logie, you can if you have a question, you ask next. Tacitus just sent me a question, two for you guys. So I'll wait. Did Logie leave? Oh no, he doesn't. My bad. I thought Logie left.
No,
I was like,
no. You guys can proceed. I don't have a question as apparently.
My bad. I thought you left, but you sent a message. I don't know why I thought you left. My fault. Okay, so Tacitus sent this. So first, he wants to know your understanding of what the war on drugs was supposed to do. Okay, that's for both of you to answer. And then he wants to know how you think that current data would support the suggestion that you would make on whether it was a win or a loss. So basically, I'll reframe that real quick because I kind of read that wrong. But basically, what is your understanding on the war on drugs? Okay. Do you believe that it was a win or a loss? And what data do you have to support your conclusion that it was a win or a loss? One of you go first, the next one go after.
So for me personally, I would say that the war on drugs was 100% a effective tool to combat drugs in the United States and the prevalent use of them. I noted a bunch of statistics in my my opening and throughout this debate that support my claim. I will state that the stated principle and endeavor of the war on drugs was ultimately to eliminate drugs in drug use in the United States. That is very much clear. It's not the wording from Nixon. He said this was public enemy number one, that it was an all-out war, which deductive thinking would deduce that he meant total eradication, right? Modern political scholars kind of change that around and say that he was talking about containment. I disagree. The war on drugs started off as a full-on eradication of drug use in the United States. If it was on that same mentality for the current war on drugs, I would say it was a failure, right? But during Reagan's administration and just before Reagan's administration, the goal of the war on drugs notably shifted to containment rather than eradication, with a end goal being eradication. So I think if we look at it in modern eyes and what modern political scholars say the war on drugs started off as and what it intended to be, then it was a moderate success. Do I think that it was totally successful? I'll admit, no, it was not. But to say that it was unsuccessful unilaterally is wrong.
All right, Judy.
All right. So Can you repeat the question just once more? I'm sorry. Just
No,
the
you're okay.
first.
You're okay, bro. You're okay, bud. So the exact question is, what is your understanding of the war on drugs? Okay.
Mhm.
Do you believe that it was a win or a loss, and what data supports that?
Alrighty. So the whole war on drugs, the whole meaning for it was to reduce crime, obviously, and to reduce drug use. Um, do I believe that it was effective? I do believe that it was effective in the way of. I really don't believe that it was effective in the way of reducing like petty drugs such as like pills and shit. I don't think that it really helped with pills. But for drugs such as cocaine, like you said, it didn't drop, but people did move to coke. Um,
Crack, you mean?
crack, my fault. Thank you. Um, but the other question, statistic wise, for the reason that for the statistics that I did have, I had the fentanyl statistics, which um, Drunken did make a good claim on that. It was also because of the cartels creating new ways to kill Americans.
Okay. So one more thing. It looks like wait, did you send the question that you have, Logie? My bad, I'm not on here. If you didn't, you just ask it yourself. Yeah, unmute and ask it.
Yeah, I was just asking if I could ask it. I have a
Yeah.
question for both commentators currently. Do you think that the actions of the Trump administration has been valid with their attack on the war on drugs? And by this, I mean like blowing boats out of the water, idolizing cartels as terrorist organizations, etc.
I'll let Tootie take this one because I started the first one.
Of course. I do believe that the blowing the boats out of the water, I do believe that that was justified in a way, but I do not believe that we should have double striked and killed the people that were on those boats. If we wanted to bring them into incarceration in the United States, I think we had every right to because they're bringing drugs into our country. But I do not think we had any right to kill the people that were on those boats. But relabeling the cartels as terrorist organizations, I do completely agree with, and I think we have every right to, speaking as they are terrorists and are killing millions of Americans every year.
So to piggyback off of that, I actually fully love what Trump did with the boats. I am very I take a very heavy-handed approach when it comes to terrorists. We labeled the cartels as terrorists for a reason. They are, like Tootie just said, they are killing millions of Americans a year, whether that's through cartel activities, which is just unilaterally killing them, or you have people. Sorry, I thought I heard something. You have people getting shot up from cartel wars. You have people getting killed by drug overdoses because they like lining shit with so heavy doses of fentanyl that it will kill you the minute you touch it. So I really don't give a shit. To excuse my French, I know we're live and everything. I really don't give a damn that we double striked. To call that into in a specific manner. I think we handled it heavy-handedly, and that is the language that the cartels speak.
Do you think that the United States government is using these, what some would consider as extreme tactics, i.e., like blowing boats out of the water, not being 100%, as people are saying, knowing of what's going on, and you guys are talking about this double strike thing killing people? Do you think that that is their direction of trying to deter people from trying to bring drugs in by saying, look, this is the extreme we're willing to go to, fuck around and find out?
Yes, 100%. That is the political method that Trump has been utilizing throughout his entire presidency, second term, and I am all for it. If a organization like the cartels speak only in violence and they respect violence, then you need to be the king of violence.
I do think that they're setting a tone for the future, but what I will say is the problem is we can't just be killing people even though they are killing us, it was technically in international waters. We had no reason to kill them. We could have confiscated their shit. We have the resources to confiscate them and take them to our mainland and arrest them for trying to kill American citizens and having all that drugs, all the amount of drugs they had on their boat. I just don't think that there was any reason at all for them to be killed.
To counter that, I don't think they have any reason to try and ship poison to the United States. So, like I said it earlier, cartels only speak one language, and that's violence and money. And we're not in the business of giving money. Well, Obama was, but we're not in the business of giving money to cartels.
I have a question for Tootie. You just spoke about international waters. What's your education and understanding of international law?
Not much. I'm not gonna lie to you there.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
At all?
I think that's it for me.
Well, that it doesn't look like I have any more questions I've been sent.
I
Anyone else?
have some questions.
All right, Steve.
Oh,
Steve,
Steve.
thank you. Thank you, Steve. Thank you. You kept our debate going. Let's go. All right, Steve. Ask
Yeah.
your question. Yeah, brother.
So I'd like to touch on the social program. So briefly, you guys mentioned that addiction is a disease and should be treated, and we should treat them, rehabilitate them, and put them on social programs that help them get out of these addictions. Now we know that when it came to alcohol, there was something called Alcoholics Anonymous. So the alcoholics got together and talked to each other and talked about how long they were clean, when they started, why they decided to stop. And there's even churches that actually host Alcoholics Anonymous discussion.
Okay.
So when it comes to social programs, what should happen for them to lift? How should the social programs lift them out of their economic status? What activities should they do the same as Alcoholics Anonymous? We know that when it comes to drugs and addiction, but oftentimes people who want to become clean, they still have to go to a therapist, and the therapist is specialized. A counselor is specialized in helping them get clean. But what else should that social program do, and how should they and the activities, like how should they help them find interests that can actually get them away from these addictions as they're getting treated to get and the addiction is being treated as a mental health.
Steve, just so you know, for future reference, your mic is going in and out like you're underwater. So I caught your entire question. I think Tootie did too.
Yeah.
So I'll let Tootie take this one first.
All right. So, like you said about Alcoholics Anonymous, we already have Narcotics Anonymous, which isn't the most useful, I will say, from somebody, like I said earlier, who has addicts in my family. Narcotics Anonymous does not help with drug use, at least from what they've said. AA may help, from what I've heard, due to it being alcohol not being like I'm not even going to go into that, whatever. But for social programs with drugs, I do think that we do need to, in a way, have forceful programs to help these people get off the streets that are drug users. I do not think that they should have an option to say no if they're using drugs and are on the streets. I think they need to go into either a drug-free housing or something like what we used to have in the 1960s and 70s with the insane asylums, psych wards, whatever you want to call them. I think we need to have something like that, but for drug users. I think it needs to be long term until they are able to be completely sober and are able to have them reintegrate into society.
That reminds me, I actually do have one more question, then we'll get out of here for sure. Unless someone else comes up, I don't think anyone else will. Do you guys
Oh well,
think?
let me answer Steve's question first.
Oh, I forgot you. My bad. I for some reason was thinking you already answered it. I'm sorry. Go. My bad. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh, I kind of already did, but to answer your question, Steve, for one, I agree with Tootie. Homeless people that are addicted to drugs, the fentanyl zombies that we see in California and Seattle, or other unfortunate addictions. Unfortunately, I think these people, while I am huge on individualism, they have demonstrated that they do not have the willpower nor the mental capability to um, actually go and get help that they need. So unfortunately, they're going to uh, need to be placed in an inpatient facility. I would err on the side of asylum, and mind you, with all the guardrails needed to make sure that there's no abuse of power, or people are getting murdered or lobotomized like they were in the 80s, and earlier. So that being said, um, in terms of social programs out like in jails or prisons, with the incarceration side that I'm in favor of, is for one, the many drug dealers, drug offenders don't have an education. Um, Many never passed the 8th grade level of anything. So we have to make sure that they have at the very minimum have a GED. There needs to be a job training program within the prison, which many prisons do already have that. But I would fully support a jobs training program within the trades. Um, that would definitely and it would have to be partnered with the state, so that way the hours spent on that job within the prison system counted towards a journeyman's license outside of prison, so that way when they get out they can apply to the state board, like, listen, I did my time, I have my hours, I can demonstrate that I know this information, and thus they can get a good paying job that's in high demand, that you don't have to worry about the AI bubble taking up, right? And these people will have a much better chance at not reoffending and falling back in with gangs and or cartels, because a lot of cartel soldiers are brainwashed people that are just smelling the money and potentially having a gun to the back of their families' heads, right? While I don't think that the US government can solve all the problems, they can definitely solve probably up to 60% of the problems.
So the question I was gonna ask, and I think you kind of answered it a little bit to an extent, Drunken. But however much social programs should exist, however much government housing should exist, potentially you think it should be none. But if it does indeed exist, which unfortunately, if you don't think it should, it's going to continue to. Do you believe that the government should have drug testing for all Section 8 housing, for Medicaid, maybe even SNAP, all forms of social programs? Do you think that there should be drug testing? And part two to this question, do you think it should be legal for a landlord to drug test their renters?
Absolutely. Across the board.
Add to the question. Add to the question. Add to the question. Any drug that's been decriminalized by the U.S. government, should it be allowed, like marijuana itself, that they just decriminalized by the U.S. government, should it be allowed to show up positive in a drug test for these people taking the drug test?
All right. So if it's a decriminalized drug by the federal government, and the state has deemed it not worthy to criminalize it in their state, then obviously if they get dinged with it, then it's a non-starter. There's no reason to that's a lawsuit waiting to happen on behalf of the person that's getting drug tested. Um, on the flip side, if they're getting drug tested and they're getting hit with fentanyl or cocaine or meth or any of the other major issues, no, absolutely, and then they should be reported, and they need to be not hauled off, but an investigation needs to take place, and a legal warrant needs to be written out for them to be either taken to prison, or to face a jury of their peers, or be taken to an asylum or a facility that specializes in fixing these issues.
All right, I want Tootie because Logie kind of came in and asked you that question, Drunken. But Tootie, I'm gonna re-ask, I guess I could say the question. Repeat the question. So,
Also,
the reason-
Patriot Joe did have a question too, so after that, you should probably pose that to us.
Okay, so first, I wanted to I wanted to say, because I know Tootie, you're a little more and you're kind of left leaning on economics, so I know you're probably decently in favor of social programs. So whether who you think should be eligible for government housing, Section 8, Medicaid, SNAP, whatever, do you think that there should be drug test requirements?
I think there should be drug test requirements for them. Anybody that's on those social programs, yeah, I think anybody that's entitled to the programs does need to be sober to be on them. But what Logie said about the what was it? I just blanked here.
They decriminalize drugs.
Like decriminalize drugs. Yeah.
Decriminalized drugs. Thank you. I do think that any decriminalized drugs should be allowed to show a positive on these tests, as long as they aren't affecting the person's condition if they're on Medicaid or Medicare. Sorry, apologies. As long as it's not affecting their condition, etc. But for SNAP, I do think that should be a thing, because if you're not able to get a job because you're on drugs, I do think that affects it. And for Section 8 housing, I do also agree with the drug tests. But for the landlord one, I do not think that landlords should be allowed to drug test people that are renting their properties, only due to the fact that, okay, so I'll say this: if you're living in somebody's house and renting, I do think, but if it's like a business or something, I don't think there's any reason to.
Okay, that's actually, honestly, I can understand that stance. So Joe's question is for both of you, of course. What are the next steps? What are the next steps both sides would take or push elected officials to take to try to clear up the problem?
I think they just need to push more better social programs, like I said earlier.
I think. Oh, I'm sorry, Tootie. Were you done?
No, I'm done. I don't even.
Sorry. I think pushing more safeguarded social programs, ones that have really robust guardrails to make sure that fraud and double dipping is non-existent, and really, really, really steep penalties for those that do actually partake in those kinds of activities. That being said, it's on us as a nation to push our politicians to actually fund scientific research and have cold, hard scientific facts that showcase whether or not a drug is safe or not to use in the general public. And it's also up to us on both sides to ensure that the social stigma, if necessary, is in place, so that way people are less likely to offend.
All right, that's gonna do it, guys. This was a phenomenal debate. I think you guys were able to carry this out a lot. Wait, Steve, you have something else?
Yeah, I have just one more question, and this is the
No,
last.
not allowed. I'm kidding.
He's
So
joking.
my-
he's joking, Steve.
My question is, say these social programs or heavy incarceration or heavy outside social programs don't work, and these people choose to go back to drugs. They absolutely don't want to better themselves because maybe they've just had too many negative things happen in their life. Because sometimes if you've had too many negative, bad things happen in your life, you can stick to that and just not be that motivated to improve your life, even if you're qualified for those programs and the government forcefully puts you on those programs. What should be the consequence then if they go back to those drugs? What do you think should happen to them? Because again, earlier someone said in the debate, you can only lead a horse to water. They have to choose to drink that water. So say they're absolutely choosing not to participate, even though they're in the program and they're just getting back out there and getting high on drugs and dealing drugs and like even after going through those programs and they're just it's like they just don't care. Like what should happen to them in that case? Should they spend an eternity in jail? What else should happen?
If you don't mind if I'll take this one, Tootie, and it'll be my last one, unless someone else has another question. But I'm in favor of a 3-strike policy. With each policy getting more restrictive on your liberties, because if you're proving to be a detriment to a society, right? Even though America is considered a highly individualist society, we're still a society nonetheless. So if you are consistently proving that you will not function in society based off of your own problems, and you will, like, given every opportunity not to reoffend, not to do heinous things to yourself or to others, there needs to be a strict 3-strike rule when it comes to specifically drug offenses. And the way that I would picture it is, if, for example, someone's in possession, that's strike 1. It's the most lenient one. You go through rehab. You go through all the social programs to do everything in their power to boost your socioeconomic status. But then you reoffend, that's strike 2. Strike 2, you have a little bit more surveillance, a little bit more issues to deal with when it comes to law enforcement. Once you hit strike 3, you forfeit your right to live in a free society. So either we could adopt a Swedish or Nordic way of doing things with their jail, where it's basically a cushy hotel where they can work out of it and whatnot, but their freedoms are highly limited. Or we can take the stance of, well, you get to stay in an asylum for the rest of your life.
All right, Tootie, this will be the last statement of the debate. Tootie, floor is yours to finish off. And if you want, you can give a closing statement.
I'm good. But for what you said, that is actually a great idea. I don't agree with the 3-strike system. I do think it should be a 2-strike system. Like Joe said, I do think that 3 is a bit lenient. If you do it twice, I think that's already enough to decide, dude, you're kind of enough. You've done enough. But I do think that, like you said, with the Nordic prisons, I do think that is where they should end up if they do continue to reoffend over and over again. And
All right,
that is
y'all.
all.
That's gonna do it. Good job from both of you. I think you guys carried this out longer than I expected.